Everybody to the October 2nd, 2025 meeting of the Newmarket School Board. We will start the meeting as always with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible. We did receive one message from a concerned parent addressing a student issue, but nothing appropriate to go into on camera. So, all right. Committee updates.
So I attended the Professional Development Committee on behalf of Lonnie, and she had a different item she had to take care of, and I have a couple notes here for Lonnie's directions to be very thorough. So the Educator Success Platform that we helped develop is being rolled out. So there's been some feedback from people on that, and we reviewed some questions and tried to come up with some answers to those folks. PD Master Plan has been submitted to the state, which is great, and all professional development has been planned through the beginning of next year, and the next meeting will be in November, I believe.
Thank you.
And thank you again. Copious notes.
Other committee reports?
Sure. Kathy and I again met with the NSSA unit for collective bargaining, and I feel like a broken record, but it continues to be positive, continues to be great conversation, and continues to go well. So we have another meeting in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
The budget committee, hot again. The budget committee met. I was not able to attend the meeting. I was able to review the agenda. I believe Bryant had a part of the presentation that they had made. Was that from the month prior, or was that from?
I'm pretty sure you were at the meeting after.
Okay. Well, in that case, I was not able to attend the budget committee meeting, so I will review the tape and make sure that I do provide an update at the next one.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Our policy meeting also took place, but of course we will be reviewing those policies later tonight.
All right, any other committee updates? All right, seeing none, board member comments?
I will be attending a virtual meeting of the Fair Funding Committee tomorrow. They are going to be held every first Friday via Zoom and third Wednesday.
Okay.
So I'll try to attend as many as I can and keep you updated on the fair funding.
Representative report. Sawyer, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'll start off with some sports. With boys soccer, they had their homecoming game on September 26th, where they had their first loss against Epping, 0-2. And then October 1st, they had a win against Pittsfield, 5-0. Their current record is 11-1, and they have an upcoming game on October 4th at Hinsdale. For girls soccer, their homecoming game of September 26th, they won against Epping, 6-0. And then they also won September 30th against Sanborn, which is 5-1. Their current record is 6-5, and they also have an upcoming game on October 4th against Hinsdale. For cross country, unfortunately, our homecoming meet got canceled because of the rain, but we have an upcoming meet in Monadnock called Moonlight Madness, which is tomorrow. Football had a game September 26th against Fall Mountain, and they have an upcoming game on October 4th at home against Laconia. Some events that have happened recently, we had the Salt Bash on September 21st. A lot of people showed up. We had Kona Ice, but there were no lights. I guess there was an issue with the power going out the day before, so we weren't able to have lights, but we still made the most of it. We had some fun. Then we had Spirit Week and Homecoming. There was a lot of participation for the dress-up days, and then lip sync, which is always a lot of fun. It's unusual because there's usually always at least one lip sync that's pretty bad, but all of them were really good this year. The seniors ended up winning, and then the dance, which was September 27th, had over 200 attendance, which is really good turnout, and we had a lot of people stay the whole time, which doesn't usually happen. We also had our club fair on October 1st, and we've also had a lot of college visits. We've had colleges like UNH, St. Anselm, URI, and we actually had 18 students at the UNH visit, which it's really cool that we can have those at the school. On another note, we have a few representatives from Interact Club today, Senior Magnolia Redmond and Junior Sarbeshwar Darwal to talk about some upcoming initiatives.
Thank you. Come up.
Hi, I'm Magnolia. I'm the secretary for Newmarket's Interact Club. So we're a volunteer work, community service work-based club. We participate in local community work and run events for our school. And we're going to talk about a couple of the activities that we do throughout the year. So one of our first big activities that takes place in the fall is called Send a Smile. We get together as a group and we make cards and with like kind messages on them and send them to the Boston Children's Hospital. So that's our fall activity.
So I'm Sarbeshwar Darwal, the VP of Interact Club. So another one of our activities was cookie baking, where a group of us from Interact went down to our foods facilities and we baked cookies to donate to the community. So last year we donated them to the food pantry, and this year is still to be determined.
I think the board is always willing to sample cookies if you need that service before sending them out.
We're here for you.
And then we also have a few representatives from SALT to talk about something else. Right? Talk about leadership conference.
Hi everyone, I'm Morgan. I'm Media Outreach for the SALT team. This is Brennan.
I'm Reagan. And I'm Monica.
Morgan, could you step one step closer to the mic? Thank you.
So basically the NHIA Athletic Director Association asked us to make a 50-minute presentation to present on November 14th at a leadership conference.
Yeah, so I attended this conference last year. It's essentially a lot of leadership clubs from different high schools across the state, and we go to different stations with different representatives. So we had a college athletic director, we had an athletic club from, I think it was Bo, and they talked about just some leadership things that they're doing in their high school and some things they're doing to take initiative and make good changes and positive changes in their high school. And they liked a lot of the contributions that SALT from Newmarket had last year, so they're asking us to come present for them. So we're going to talk about a couple things that Annika will let you know. And then some events that we'll talk about is like the SALT Bash and how it went, like Sawyer said. It was good, but there wasn't any lights. We can also talk about game day themes and how like the colored ones are very good, but the other themes that are kind of like more difficult to dress up for are a little bit harder to follow. And we're also going to do a school-wide pink out, so we can talk about that, and doing bingo at the Pines.
Yeah, we've been doing bingo at the Pines. We did it last month, and then later this month on October 21st, we're going to go again and play bingo with all of them. Do you want to read this one?
Yeah, so around 12 of us are going to go up to this conference, and we're going to have two people who usually, they float in between the rooms, which is what we've normally done when we've gone to these conferences, but now a core group of us is going to be staying in one room, and we're going to present about what SALT does.
So yeah, we were basically just asked to do this because we are going to show like what we do for our community, and we represent SALT well. And we're going to be making the presentation soon, and we'll keep you guys updated on all of our progress. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know, Mr. Hayes, did you want to say a couple of quick words? Because I know this is a pretty big honor for this group.
It is. One thing that they didn't emphasize, they talked about it, but one of the reasons we're invited, because we've been to this conference, and as much as our kids have participated and shared out and everything, we're kind of looked at as an example, exemplary group across the state, and they want us to do, they want us to share what we do, and so other groups can come on board with that. One of the things is I'm the advisor, and I've told them that all I do is advise. And they're a group of student leaders, and everything that gets done is because of their efforts. So we have a great group of kids, great group of officers, and they really do a good job of getting out there and doing a lot. And some of the things that they don't like to talk about that they do is they pick up trash after games, and they do a lot of little things that don't get noticed as well as, not just the things that promote, but they're also doing a lot of things that kind of fly under the radar that make a big difference and help out different people around the building and the community as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. We always have known we have good kids. It's nice to know that other parts of the state realize it now too.
Absolutely.
And this is recognition of that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's all I have for today.
Very good. I have to say, in this particular summer, to have a cross-country meet rained out, that's an exceptional level of bad luck. That's kind of, don't gamble if you...
I just want to ask the young man with his Snoopy shirt on. It's like, 70 years ago that Charles Schultz, I think today, or it was yesterday, that he had the first Snoopy cartoon. Just a little side note.
All right, moving along to the superintendent report.
Thank you. Thank you. And I was saying to Sawyer earlier, this is the biggest crowd we've had in a long time, and they're all here because of Sawyer. So, I don't know. He's got groupies, and we don't. So maybe we can get our own following. But again, thank you for being here, and don't feel you don't have to stay for the whole meeting. It's totally your call as to when you want to extricate yourself. Okay, my report. I did have a couple of things I wanted to share with you. First off, October 1st is a big date in the state reporting. It's the date at least our enrollment is given. October 1 is the official date that they use for all the calculations that come down the road. So I just wanted to give you an update on kind of where the Newmarket schools stand on October 1. We had projected in our budget development last year that we'd have 994 kids in our school system. As of October 1, we had 983. For the most part, our enrollment was very stable, although we had a couple of kind of oddities that often come up. One, our preschool numbers are way down. We only have 29 preschoolers. Typically, we have 35 plus. We do anticipate that's largely a special education program, so we do expect over the coming year to identify more students, and that number will probably go up, probably get up into that 32 to 35 range, but it is down for the start of the school year. The other abnormality was our kindergarten numbers went through the roof. The one thing we're starting to notice is nothing makes sense in terms of enrollments. We are, as a system, we are up 1 year, down, up, down. That's just the way it goes. And if you follow it all the way through, you have a year that's big numbers, and they're almost always followed by a down year. But in the end, the enrollments are largely stable. If you look at the last 4 or 5 years, we've been pretty consistent there. So anyway, 983 is the number reported to the state for our October 1 enrollment. A couple of things I wanted to mention to you, not because I want you to make decisions tonight, but I wanted to kind of throw these ideas at you because on the next board meeting, would like to have some discussion and potentially make some decisions on this. One thing I wanted to mention is that our bus contract with First Student expires at the end of this year. So Bryant and I had a meeting with Ben Henry from First Student last week to kind of talk through the contract and possibilities. They have given us a quote if we wanted to renew our contract for a 5-year extension. What they've quoted is 12% in year 1, 6.5% in each of the 4 subsequent years through the contract. 12% may sound like a lot. but a couple of things that are unusual in that. One is the cost of SST transportation was not included in the original bid, and this does include the cost of SST transportation. And you may recall last year there was a lot of labor issues around national union involving transportation bus drivers, and so there was ultimately a contract settled, and it did involve some pretty significant pay increases to drivers, including benefits. So that's all included in that quote. So what we'll need to talk about next time is, number one, whether, because the other alternative, by the way, is to put it out for bid and to get alternative quotes. But the contract does allow us to have an extension if we choose to. If we did that, the board would have to waive the bidding policy and decide to do that. But I just wanted to float that idea to you. I will say we've had pretty good luck with First Student, certainly in my time here, and from what I understand before that, they very much are very effective bus company. Short of us having our own bus company, I think that would be the ideal, but it's a lot more expensive. So that's one. Second thing I wanted to mention to you is Dave Riley has been, and actually this started in the spring, as you know, in like June and September, it's pretty warm in our schools, and the issue of temperature in the schools becomes an issue. And some spaces in the school are hotter than others. But we don't really have the capacity currently to consider air conditioning in many of our spaces because the electrical wiring is just not adequate for that. And we do have a couple of students that have medical needs that are going to require us to consider that as we go forward. Dave, working with our electrical firm, I got a quote to upgrade all the classrooms in the junior, senior high, and by the way, all the elementary school classrooms they already have the 20 amp service that would be needed for AC. It would be $33,000 to do the entire high school, so all 59 classrooms would have 20 amp service, and it is eligible for impact fee reimbursement. And as you know, we often struggle to find things that are coverable by impact fees. So at the next meeting, I'd like just to have a conversation about whether that's a project that we consider as an impact fee project, and Dave will be here to give you a lot more details to that. Next to last thing I wanted to mention is, obviously, if anybody's following politics, we have a federal government shutdown going on, and ordinarily that wouldn't make much difference in New Hampshire public schools, but one of the things that is of concern is federal access to federal grant money. This year, for the first time ever, the feds only allocated 40% of the money that we were supposed to receive for all of our federal grants, with the notion that in October we were going to get the balance. Depending on how long the shutdown goes on, there's a possibility accessing our grant money might become an issue in the next month or so. We did receive confirmation that the IDEA money had already been given to the state, so that we will have access to that, but Title I, Title II, and Title IV, access to those funds is still up in the air as to whether or not the feds will get that money to us with the government shutdown. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. And then lastly, I just want to remind the board and the community that on October 18th, that's a Saturday, here in our library here in the high school, we will be having our budget workshop where we will be going through all the draft of the budget, and it'll be an inspiring time for us.
And the public's always welcome. The student body can come in 8:30 on a Saturday, hang out for a while.
Listen to a budget presentation, you're always welcome.
So I did have a question about the electric. I'm assuming that doesn't mean running additional wires. And it's something I can ask Dave, certainly, but for $33,000 for an entire
It's just
school.
providing 20 amp service in every classroom so that you can...
Yeah. It sounds like we're not.
Hey, Jamie, would you hang out for just 1 minute? I promise it'll be quick.
Yeah, it sounds like we're not increasing the electrical capacity necessarily, but we can talk to Dave next.
Yeah, I definitely talked with Dave. I mean, the issue actually came down to some of the classrooms, because we use the space units, individual units, and some of the classrooms require more than one, and most of them, you can't do that without blowing a circuit. So that's really what this was about, is to make the capacity to be able to provide adequate air conditioning in the spaces that need it, specifically tied to, we have some medically fragile kids that it's really important to maintain a healthy temperature.
All right, sorry, the reason I grabbed Jamie, so the transportation contract, and because we have one of the largest end users here, how do we feel about the current arrangement we have for extracurricular transportation? And is that something that's worthwhile pushing First Student to try to get that back under that umbrella again?
Do you want to take it from the standpoint of, because you really don't use First Student?
Right, Todd and I had this conversation last week before they met, and we don't have school. We've pretty much been told, don't plan on a bus before 4:30. For example, Epping played here Friday night for soccer, 5 o'clock game. They showed up at 4:35 because they were waiting for a 4 o'clock bus that got there at 4:20. So that's how First Student is. A lot of times it's drivers coming off the road, and after they finish the route, they get over to the school and pick up. If they have to stop and use a bathroom or do something in between, it ends up delaying, or if their route is delayed. So we're kind of, on a regular school day, we're kind of limited of what we can use. So, and they understand that, and they understand that we give them first rights when it's, because our contract says that we're supposed to go to them first, but they understand that they're not available, and we do it when we can, but there's a lot of times they can't service what we need.
So like, typically what you do at the beginning of the season is you give them all the dates, they cover what they can, and then you fill in with any events for everything else.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think the contract would include rates for extracurriculars, but that's not in the base rate. You pay additional for additional transportation. But yeah, I mean, it would be great if they could do it, but at least since the pandemic, when staffing shortages became a problem, I don't know of anybody who, and actually I would speak to Oyster River, where they own their own buses, and even there, they had a hard time leaving early enough to get to after-school events, because the drivers typically are all doing a run, and then when they're done their run, then they come back and take so if you don't have sub-drivers, there's not much you can do. So any events has typically been like our sub-drivers.
Yeah, they've been great, yeah. I mean, a lot of schools that we play against, particularly middle schools, our parents are carpooling. So we haven't had to get to that point, which has been great. The rec department has allowed us to use their van. We have some of our coaches and myself that have put our stuff in with the state, so we can drive those vans, and the rec department's been great when we have small groups under 12.
They are down to one van now, by the way.
Yeah.
All right, good. I'm not trying to push us into anything that doesn't work. I just wondered if anyone saw value in pushing First Student to do more, but
they just don't have the drivers. It's not that they don't want to, it's they just don't. They have empty buses sitting on their lots, but nobody can drive them. So.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to keep you, but.
No, you're right. Thank you.
All right, any other follow-up questions for Todd? All right, seeing none. Bryant, come and enthrall us with the discussion of Q4 financials.
All right. So our fiscal year 24-25 year-end financials have been audited by an independent auditor. We used the firm Plodzik and Sanderson, and we've made all the adjusting journal entries requested by the auditor, so the numbers I'm going to present today reflect the audited figures. And there are a ton of numbers, so it would probably be helpful to follow along in the financial report, because I'm not going to verbally go over every single detail in the report. The audit won't be officially finalized until towards the end of the calendar year, but we don't anticipate any significant changes. We've also submitted the DOE 25 and MS 25 reports to the New Hampshire Department of Education. We've used the figures from the audited financials, and these reports are used by the Department of Revenue to set the tax rate for Newmarket. I'll talk a little bit later about what is reported in the DOE 25, But the MS 25 is actually baked into the DOE 25 report, and it's actually auto-populated using formulas and the Excel template that they provide. So by completing the DOE 25, it actually automatically completes the MS 25. So I'll start with probably what's of most interest to you, the fund balance to reduce taxes. So we have something called the unassigned fund balance, which is basically the funds left over after all our bills and allocations for the fiscal year have been accounted for. This amount can be used to reduce taxes, so it's an important data point for informing local decisions at both the school district and the town. So the assigned fund balance is calculated by taking the unexpended amount in the general fund. This includes the retained fund balance from fiscal year 23-24. So as a reminder, that amount was $767,000. And you combine that with the net of the revenue and expenditures from this past fiscal year, adjusted for a few auditing requirements. And then from that amount, you subtract out the new retained fund balance that you voted for contingency from 24-25. So this was the 3.75% from the net assessment. That was a little less than $857,000. And then lastly, you deduct the encumbrances voted from the subsequent year. So there were 2 warrant articles, a total of $265,000 going into the trust funds, $200,000 for the capital reserve, and $65,000 for the special education funds. So after doing that calculation, we end up with $482,287 going back to the town to reduce taxes. In the financial report, you'll see our financial statements for the year end. So that's June 30th, 2025. The first section is on expenditures in the general fund, and we've disaggregated that for you by cost category. So overall, we had a surplus over what was budgeted by 3.4%, or $929,000. I'm not going to go over every single line, but I'll talk a little bit about what I thought were the key variances of interest. So the first one is the salaries professional education line, where we had a surplus of $122,500. That's from shifting almost, or 0.4 full-time equivalents for a literacy coordinator. So we moved that from the general fund to the Title I grant. We also had a staff that took some unpaid leave of absence, so that's how we got to that surplus. The next one is salaries for paras, tutors, and monitors. This surplus of about $105,000 was largely from unfilled para-educator and tutor positions throughout the year. The next one is for salaries, other educational. We actually had a deficit of a little over $100,000, and this is primarily from long-term substitute usage that was higher than we anticipated. The next one is salaries, other salary benefits. We had a surplus of about $97,000. So some examples of these benefits are severance payments or sick day buybacks or insurance buybacks. So the costs for these items are pretty difficult to predict because staff don't submit requests until pretty late in the fiscal year, and we tend to, err on the side of caution when budgeting for these benefits in the event we actually have to pay out these liabilities. But in this year, we didn't have to pay as much as what was budgeted. The next one is for New Hampshire retirement, as well as health and dental benefits. So we had surpluses for both lines, and this is a result of unexpended budgets for staffing vacancies or unfilled positions. Health and dental variances are also from changes in plan elections made by employees. This could go either way in any given year. In this year, it went our way. In a positive, in terms of the budget balance. The next line is for professional development. So we had a surplus of $76,000. So this is from funds that we budgeted for annually, but the PD that were expended didn't take up that whole amount. And then the next line is for professional services. So we actually had a deficit of $152,000. The majority of this goes to special education expenses. We had to use contracted services to offset some staffing vacancies that we weren't able to fill. And contracting the services out can be quite expensive, so that's why we had a deficit this year. The next one is for tuition. So we had a surplus of about $120,000. So this was from, we budgeted for an out-of-district tuition for a special ed student, which were unspent because I guess that student moved out of district. And then lastly, we had a surplus for utilities and fuel of about $90,000. So these energy costs were lower than projected, and again, these types of costs are pretty hard to forecast, and we tend to be conservative with our budget forecast there. So that expenditure, I can stop there if you have any questions on that piece.
Seeing none.
Okay, so I'll move on to food services. So we ended the year with an operating loss of $18,730, but we still ended the year with a positive fund balance of $134,000. That's down from $153,000 from the previous year. Food service fund balances are restricted, so these funds can't be returned to the town to reduce taxes. It can only be used to offset future losses in our food service fund or to enhance our program. We're not allowed to have a positive balance that exceeds more than 3 months of operating costs, and last year we were over that limit, so we actually intentionally had a spend down plan where we expended funds beyond our budget in order to reduce down that surplus balance. But now we're currently below that maximum threshold, so we don't need a spend down plan for this current year. Any questions on food service? Okay, so then moving on to revenues, and just a reminder, we make our revenues public every month on our website. And if you're looking at the report, the local and state revenues were pretty much right on target. Just two variances of note. In the other local revenues line, we had a surplus of about $80,000. And this is largely from higher interest amounts earned in our banking account. Also, we had some tuition paid from a mid-year placement that came over from another district. One thing I'll note is I'm not sure we can anticipate that interest revenue to maintain at the current level because interest rates are going down currently. The other one was from state revenues. We had a surplus of almost $93,000. So we got a bit more in special education aid and Medicaid reimbursements. Special ed is, again, a bit hard to predict. It depends on sort of the makeup of our student body, and that can change at any time if someone moves in or out of town. Last thing on the revenues is that the lines in the federal grants, and one example from the food services, there are some deficits there, but this can largely be explained because those funding streams have a different period. Like the grants have, they go on until September, so that budget also includes the anticipated revenue coming from July to September. Okay. Any questions on the revenues? Right.
Actually, not a question, but I did want to just comment, the surplus in the special ed aid. I just want to say, Heidi Heidi Hand and Erica McNeil and her team do an awful lot of work to make sure that we maximize that, and I know they put a lot of time and energy into that, so shout out to Erica and Heidi for all their work on that.
Okay, I was going to say also, it's probably the clearest explanation of unassigned fund balance calculation, and even what it is, so thank you. It was very, very clear.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, moving right along then. So we're up to impact fees and capital reserves from the expendable trusts. So in terms of the impact fees, we have about $34,000 set to expire by the end of the calendar year 2026, and it's use it or lose it. So as Todd mentioned, we have a plan in place to use to make sure we use the 26 impact fees before they expire for the electrical work done in this building. And we just confirmed with the community development technical person in the town that it's an allowable expense. So in terms of the capital reserves, we have 6 trust funds with an aggregate balance as of June 30th of a little over $2 million. And then in March, the warrant articles number 5 and 6 were approved to contribute another, as I mentioned, $265,000. So that's not included in the figures in the table in the report. Keep in mind, we also have $35,000 coming out of the IT fund for equipment costs, and about $521,000 out of the school repair and maintenance fund. That's according to Dave's capital plan, and you all have already cleared and approved those transfers.
And just a quick note, remember when we developed the capital plan, the intention was to spend down and eliminate the school repair and maintenance fund. So that goes away, and moving forward, all deposits go into this school improvement capital reserve, and the reason being that's a more flexible fund that allows us to do repairs, maintenance, and improvements, whereas repairs only can be done out of that fund.
If there's no questions on that section. Okay, so circling back to the DOE 25, it has been approved by the New Hampshire Department of Education. Just a little bit more about what it is and what is contained in it. So it's a mandatory and annual submission by public school districts. It conforms to the New Hampshire Financial Accounting Guidelines, and it provides a standardized and comprehensive accounting of each district's financial activity for the previous fiscal year. So this includes statements on revenues, expenditures, and our balance sheet. It's used by the New Hampshire Legislature, the U.S. Department of Education, and the Department of Revenue for cost of pupil calculations, and informs decisions on the tax rates and funding allocations for the town. So the data in the DOE 25 report is highly disaggregated. It requires many versions of the same data set. So it's just basically sliced and diced in different ways. For example, it's broken down by the fund type. So this is like by general fund, food service, grants. It's disaggregated by function. In other words, what the expense is used for. For example, is it used for instruction? Is it used for support services? And then by the cost type. So is it for salaries, supplies? Is it for capital expenditure? And then there are separate sections that required detailed reporting and expenditure for specific areas like special education or transportation or food services. And then most of these sections also requires a breakdown by the school level. So again, it's just manipulating the data into all these different sort of ways that they want it summed up, basically. So that's what the DOE 25 is. And that's the last thing I'll mention about the previous year's financial statements. I'll stop here for any questions on that before I move on into this current fiscal year.
I would just acknowledge that later in the meeting, you will vote to, hopefully, to accept the DOE 25 and then sign off on it, and this explanation gives you that background to do so.
I also, I think it was shared the actual, like, very,
If anybody wants to look at all of the information you just described.
yeah, it's kind of it's a giant, anyways, it's huge. Okay, so just some things I wanted to note about this current fiscal year. So the first thing is a reminder that the contribution rates for New Hampshire retirement, they've actually gone down this year compared to the previous year, and it's 0.8 of a point for teachers and 0.4 of a percentage point for other employees. So this will result in about $15,000 in savings for us. It won't be, this retirement rate won't change again for another 2 years, so it's stable for this year and the next fiscal year. The second thing is on adequacy aid. So we received our early sort of near final estimate, and this is a bit of not great news. We'll actually receive $41,779 less in total adequacy aid than what we used to build the 25-26 budget. Just for your information, adequacy aid comes from state revenues, like from lottery and licensing. It's not raised locally from property taxes. And we like adequacy aid because it can be used to reduce the tax burden on the town. On the other hand, we have something called SWEPT, which is the statewide education property tax. And while it's technically a state tax, it's actually raised locally by our property taxes, basically. So while it does increase our revenue, it doesn't provide any tax relief to the residents.
In fact, based on that variance in the adequacy aid, effectively $41,779 was handed to the local taxpayers to make up. Mm-hmm. It'll come out of our local rate.
So in the financial report, there's a graphic in there that shows you the sort of variations and trends for these two revenue streams over the past several years. And unfortunately, we don't have much ability to impact the amount of either of these revenues. It's governed by the New Hampshire State Legislature. So swings in this allocation do have an impact, as Todd said, on our tax rate. And then the last thing that I will talk about, and it's setting the stage for what Todd's going to go over with you next on the rising costs of providing health insurance. So on September 29th, we received an invoice from our health insurance provider, School Care, for basically $418,000 to pay our share of a contribution assessment to replenish School Care's reserve funds. And this is because School Care had, pretty unexpected utilization and claims. So all these expenditures depleted their reserves and actually put them into a deficit. So they are now asking all their members for money to build back up their reserves. So this amount, and it's a big, chunk of money that they're charging us, was not budgeted in our fiscal year 25-26. So in the financial report, I've included like an early glimpse of our Q1 year-to-date expenditure. So this is as of end of September, because we wanted to see if we had some flexibility in our budget to absorb some of these costs. And then Todd is going to go over potential options of, the path forward after this. So if you look at the chart, we have a column with, our planned budget, as well as our year-to-date activity. And then the percentage of the annual budget that has been expended as of quarter one. And then I put in a benchmark of 25%, quarter one, we're 25% of the way through the year. And then the last column is the variance against that 25% target. I'll qualify that the 25% target is more useful in some cases than others. It is useful for salaries because, salaries are paid every 2 weeks. It's pretty set schedule, so we should know where we should be, at the end of quarter one for that. It's not as useful for the operational budget because our spending is not linear throughout the year. So that's a little bit of context that you need to look at these numbers with. So looking at the year-to-date spending for salaries, we do have a surplus of 1.5 million. This is largely because we were able to transfer a bunch of salaries from the general fund and pay it through the SAS grant. So this is the Safe and Supportive Schools grant. It's also the result of some vacant positions. And then similarly, we have a surplus under the benefits, so that's related to the salaries. Meanwhile, our operating budget, we're actually in a deficit of about $1 million, and this is because we pay all our subscriptions, all the school supplies, we front load all those expenditures, so it's not surprising that we're, based on the 25% benchmark that we're actually in a deficit there. So overall, we have about $1 million. We're in, a surplus in the good. If you're going off of that 25% benchmark, but like I said, it's not necessarily the best predictor of where we'll end up at the end of the year, but it does give us some context, where we might have some wiggle room. And I know Todd will go into a little bit more detail right after this, but that's the end of my report.
Just a comment about the first quarter, particularly with salaries. The year-round people have salaries in July and August, but obviously our teaching staff returned, and so this only reflects the first month. So we'll have a better handle at the end of, because this next quarter, the second quarter, everybody will be, so we'll have, I think we can have a conversation after the second quarter report. I mean, I do feel very good about our financial position, don't get me wrong, but it's just in terms of comparing apples to oranges, if you're talking about the time when there's little financial activity from a personnel standpoint, the summer is typically July, August is that time. So the $1 million just sounds like a lot, but just keep that in mind that we need to get through more of the year before we start talking like that. Typically, by the first of the next calendar year, we'll be able to start to say, gee, what do we anticipate sort of our year-end fund balance to be? And obviously this conversation is relevant because we have an assessment of $417,000 to pay and kind of thinking about how we want to manage it. It's giving you an indication of where we're at.
Yeah, thanks for that. So forget about what I said about the salaries being where we're expecting them in terms of a linear path. So I was wrong about that. So thank you.
Just the salaries part. Everything else you're right.
Questions for Bryant?
You said that some of the salaries were able to be paid out of the SAS grant. Is that something that we can project every year for, or is that just a one-time thing?
Unfortunately, fortunately we have it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was supposed to be a 5-year grant, and without getting into all the political brouhaha, it went from being a 5-year grant to here's $275,000, you have 4 months to spend it. So being able to do something sustainable over 5 years, unfortunately that option is gone. What we are trying to do, though, is to use those funds very strategically to free up resources for the second half of the year so that as we make some decisions about some restructuring around mental health supports, that we might be able to have the money to do it.
Okay.
So we really consciously chose our school psychologist, our social worker, all these licensed mental health clinicians are eligible for reimbursement of the grant. And basically what we're doing is we're paying their salaries throughout the fall, and that was in the regular budget. So now, by using that money, the local money that's been collected is just growing for
Yeah,
us.
okay. So it's not something we can expect every year?
No,
Okay.
unfortunately, I wish.
We can expect it, but it's not going to come. Other,
We'll plan on it.
Yes.
other questions? Yeah, I was going to say for myself at least, please don't interpret the lack of questions as lack of interest. It's just when you lay it all out this clearly, and you don't have to go play Where's Waldo to figure out how the numbers line up. I just sit here and reflect. So, thank you for that.
It was very well done, Brian. Thank you.
All right. Nice little segue right into the discussion of the health insurance dilemma.
So anyway, so obviously Brian introduced you, or you probably already knew. We did receive a healthcare assessment. Yep, come on down.
I forgot about the last, oh, I don't even have it here.
What?
More contacts.
You're talking about the section on the interest rate and impact?
Yeah, I forgot.
Why don't you actually just stay here at the podium, and then we can kind of go back and forth on it.
All right.
So anyway, we did receive an assessment. School Care is the health insurance provider that Newmarket uses. School Care is the second largest pooled insurance provider in the state. There are only two, so there are two, Health Trust and School Care. It's important to understand sort of the logic of what is happening here. Basically what happened is, and frankly, I would say it's in many ways an extension of the same problem that we dealt with in the spring. You may recall we had a committee of teachers and leaders of our district who spent 6 months reviewing all the healthcare options and made the decision that it made sense to move to New Hampshire interlocal trust. There was a law passed, or not passed, proposed last year called SB 297 that was an attempt to try to regulate pooled insurance coverage. The new regulations sent shockwaves into the pooled insurance market. Unfortunately for us, New Hampshire Interlocal Trust was being pressured by the Secretary of State's office to build up their reserves to a point where they couldn't afford. They were forced to charge an inordinate, in fact, we got told that if we wanted to stay with them, our rate was going to be 34% up, and clearly that was completely impossible for us. So at that point, we made the difficult decision to say, all right, well, what are our options? And at that point, our only option was to go back to School Care and say, can we stay? So School Care allowed us to stay for what we have them for 1 year. They gave us a 12.5% increase, which was certainly a lot better than the 34 that Interlocal was going to give us. But ultimately, what's happening to School Care is largely the same issue that happened to New Hampshire Interlocal just a little bit later. Basically, what it comes down to is the way they're structured, they need to maintain a reserve fund of between 12 and 16% of potential premiums. And their actuarials and through analysis indicates that if they don't assess an additional charge, they will be in deficit before the end of this school year. In other words, they won't be able to pay claims by April. So clearly, that's a problem, because having insurance that can't pay is not helpful. So their board of directors made the difficult decision to do an additional assessment to all of the members. So basically, there's a $30 million assessment being charged to 89 member groups, and it works out to be roughly equivalent to 1.5 months worth of premiums for each district. And for us, that amount is about $417,000. You've probably heard some other districts. I spoke to the VA over in Portsmouth. They have a $1.5 million charge. Claremont's just got God love them, I don't know how they're going to handle it, an $870,000 assessment on top of the $5 million deficit they already have. So anyway, the bottom line is this is being passed on to multiple districts, $2 million in Concord, by the way. So I spoke to legal counsel and we talked this through. I mean, the way the pooled insurance works, they have every right to do this assessment. Because the way it works is, as being a member of the pool, in effect, all the members of the pool are accepting the risk of the financial viability of the entity. It is probably worth noting that in past years, they have done premium holidays. So like when there's a surplus, money comes back to us. And that has happened on multiple occasions. In fact, it's happened at least once since I've been here. So that does happen. This is the first time in their 30-year history they've had to come back with an assessment. So we are presented then with, how do we deal with this? I will start by saying, despite how rosy the financial picture is right now, we don't have $417,000 in our 25-26 operating budget to say, here you go. We just don't have that. So we do have to think about what are the mechanisms we have to pay this debt. One tool we do have, which we haven't expended yet, although I know we had talked about utilizing it to make up the shortfall, because when we switched back to school care, it was about $150,000 more than we had budgeted. So keep in mind, 417 plus 150, so we're now almost at $600,000 more than was budgeted. But we have the health expendable trust fund that has, and in Bryant's report, you can see the number there, I think it's $131,000. So that could be about a little less than a third of the total amount. That leaves us with about $285,000-ish to make up. Bryant and I did some pretty careful analysis, and obviously the report he just made shows you the level of detail. And we think what makes the most sense for us and what I would recommend is that we accept that we don't pay it right away, because we don't get assessed a late fee until January. At the very end of the year, it probably would make sense if we're going to use our expendable trust fund to deplete that down to as low as we decide we want to go, maybe down to $1. Pay that because it reduces the liability, and then accept that we're probably going to accrue interest at a rate of about 0.5% a month through the first half of next year, with the idea that when we reach the point of the end of this year, the board could then take a look at the retained fund balance, which, remember, you chose to increase that to 3.75%. Thank you for doing that, by the way. And the difference between having the minimum in the retained fund balance to keep it open is 2.5%. The difference between 2.5 and 3.75 is roughly $280,000, which is roughly what you do the math. You see, which is roughly the amount of the liability. Now, obviously, there would be some additional costs next. We have to incur some interest, and it's not quite the full amount. Obviously, the financial picture we just presented is pretty rosy right now, short of this. So we think we can probably squeeze, 20, 30, maybe 40,000 out of 25, 26 to make up that difference. But what it would mean is two things. One, after we did that, we would have no trust fund for health insurance. So we'd have to talk about replenishing that. And given the current healthcare market, I think we would probably want to consider that pretty heartily. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And the other thing to keep in mind is by doing what we suggest, by reducing the retained fund balance to 2.5%, which is the minimum that you can do and keep it open, that is the lowest end of the retained fund balance. And remember, the retained fund balance is sort of that emergency contingency fund. And so we probably would want to have a strategy over the next few years for replenishing that. The reason I recommend this particular strategy is I do not want to interfere with the 25-26 education of our kids by doing things like saying, well, we're going to lay as many people, cut programs, not have supplies. I don't think any of us want that. This allows us to function normally through 25-26. It does present a problem that we have to solve, which is replenishing trust funds. It also would allow us, as Bryant just reported, we're going to return about $482,000 to the taxpayers for this year to offset taxes. It still keeps us on track to have a similar amount to return to offset taxes next year, which I look at it from the standpoint of wanting to minimize the impact that it's going to have on the local taxpayer and keep our schools running. So anyway, that's our recommendation. And I know you want to talk about the interest charge piece, because obviously people need to understand what that means.
Yeah, so after January 1st, they all start charging us 0.5 monthly interest. And if we wait until the very last minute and basically don't pay until May, that interest expense is about $13,000. If we pay what is in the trust fund, so about $135,000 by January 1st, but then don't pay until May, the interest expense is about $8,700. So it's not like a backbreaking expense, and we'll actually be earning interest ourselves on that money. So it might be worth that expense just to have some flexibility and have a better picture of what our financial position will be later in the year. It gives us some flexibility with our cash flows as well. So something to definitely discuss.
And actually, I'm glad you said that, Bryant, because the unexpected keeps happening to us. And so if we wipe ourselves out and prevent us from having flexibility at the beginning, if another thing happens, we don't have the ability to retool. At least in this model, it keeps our money in our pocket as long as possible, so that if anything does come up, we can rethink it, and we don't give the money to school care until the last possible minute. And just so you know, the reason that they are able to do what they're doing, they're actually borrowing money from a bank, and the finance charge is the money that will go to, it basically is covering the cost of the loan for school care. So they will immediately have access to the $30 million they need to keep claims going. In addition to the fact that they'll continue to take in monthly premiums and all of that stuff. But yeah, it makes sense. It does make the most sense.
Thank you for that clarification, because my immediate reaction was everyone's going to do the same thing we're doing and the whole thing's just going to collapse. But
yeah,
to the extent they've got bridge financing to get through this. Reactions, questions?
I'm inclined to follow the recommendations here that I'm hearing from Ryan and Todd, just simply because we are in kind of unknown times right now, uncertain times, and having access to the funding in the short term seems beneficial. I really don't see a reason to rush it, because zero interest between now and January, right? So we've already got a few months of a runway there. Certainly think that opportunity to do anything right now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. My thought goes to the refunding the trust funds, and whether we'll probably have to look at the CIP trust fund pretty seriously when it gets to that time of year.
Yeah, actually, one of the things, and Brian, you probably could speak to this from memory, because I know you were you and Dave pulled together the updated CIP, and we were looking at the interest projections over the next few years, and it does look like the interest rate we've been earning on our money has been higher than we projected, right?
Yeah, it's around 4% for the last year or so. And, we have 2 million altogether, and so it's not insignificant. And in terms of the capital improvement plan, we have a pretty big expenditure this year. Based on that plan, it drops pretty significantly next year. I think it's around $168,000. And that fund itself has 1.2 or $1.3 million in it. So if there's a trade-off between replenishing or adding to that fund and replenishing, maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah, that's where I'm thinking as well.
Yeah, I think we can go back and take a look, because I know that obviously we have historically put 200,000 in this CIP, which in a perfect world we continue to do that, but maybe this is a year that we consider either a different amount or no amount at all, because the money to cover the project for this year is already in the trust fund. And again, it's a math problem to solve, like what do we need to have the contribution rate be over the next 5, 10, 15 years to make sure the money's there when we get there. And I think our reserve funds are healthier than they were when we built the plan. So I do think there's other variables to consider.
And not that I think the general public is probably looking at it as minutely as I'm thinking, but we also probably need to be careful about shifting the amount too much that we replenish it by, because if we all of a sudden go to 25,000, saying next year want 250,000, there might be a sticker shock that we need to consider. It's a tough balance.
Bonnie, Kathy, anything to add to the discussion?
I just, and maybe this is wanting to see the rosier side, I do feel, particularly in comparison to some of these other districts, fortunate that there has been the forethought and the planning to put us in a situation where we are, I'm not saying it's not a really tricky situation and a big bill, but that we are, have multiple options and, are thinking about how are we replenishing these for the future rather than how do we even cover this. And I do appreciate what Todd is saying in terms of this shouldn't be a worry for the Newmarket, students or the Newmarket educators or the Newmarket families.
There is one other thing I did want to mention, because it's actually mentioned in the school care Q&As, just in case you guys saw it. One of the things that did come up, we did a call or a town hall meeting with school care last week. One of the questions asked was, well, can we pass some of this cost on to our employees? And clearly our contract, there's a 85-15 split, 85% 15. So we could technically look at this as something we could hand 15% of it to our employees. I think that would be morale crushing. And I don't know, because the idea is what that would mean to the individual employee would be $600. A family could be like $1,500 heading into the winter. I would, because we can do it, I would recommend we don't consider it, even though it's an option that some districts are considering. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, probably one of the best civics classes to sit in on is this one, because I think it's pretty enlightening to what goes on in the board, and this is definitely, and you guys can definitely leave. Because you guys do have money enough, so.
But I have to agree with you about refraining from passing on anything extra. And also, being new on the board and being a relatively new resident of Newmarket, I do have to commend the forethought that's been put into these budgets over the years, because we're not getting that shock like the Claremonts are, or my old district, Franklin, or other poorer communities that are just, not to say that Newmarket is in a plush situation, but the budgeting has obviously been very thought out, and I commend all of you for doing that in previous years. So I'm not quite as panicked today as I was yesterday.
The time to panic is not yet.
Yeah.
But I agree with pretty much everything that's been said, and least of which is we should hold on to our money very long. The other shoe hanging in midair here is what you mentioned earlier with the federal agreements for Title I, Title III, there are many titles, but if for some reason the federal government decides to withhold those from the state of New Hampshire, then the whole state is suddenly in a terrible way. And, that's not something I even want to really spend a lot of time contemplating, because realistically there's very little we could do about it if it came to pass. So, but yeah, the defer strategy certainly makes all the sense in the world from my standpoint, just until we get some of these uncertainties removed from the table.
And I think the reality is we're going to find out, if you look at interest rates and inflation, the amount that we're being charged, we're probably not even going to lose any money by in that result at the end of it.
No, that isn't my concern at all. My concern
No,
is
of
that
course not.
everyone's going to do what we're doing,
Yeah.
and at some point, the lenders who are providing the bridge financing for school care are going to say, guys, nobody's paying you. We are not comfortable.
They must expect it. I mean, a rate like that, how are people going to turn that down, right?
I'm just saying, if I was a lender, it would make me
Wow.
deeply nervous if they see no money coming in, and
You want to give $5 just to throw some in the hat?
Luckily, you don't have to lose sleep over it because you're not the lender.
yeah.
Well, the
But-
problem is if sometimes the lender decides all of a sudden they're not
Yeah.
comfortable with it, right?
Right.
So just as a matter of kind of, I'm sensing an openness to the solution that we are proposing. So in order to move forward on that, at some point before the end of the calendar year, we'll have to have a meeting where we do a public hearing to choose to expend the expendable trust fund, to use it to pay the assessment. And the other decisions really are later. And when you guys are ready, well, most of you guys are ready in June, then that's when we'll make that
Dan
decision.
could be ready if we really wanted to.
All right. Well, with that happy topic, thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
And if I could just say one last thing, just a reminder that on Monday, Gary is the board representative at the Health Benefits Committee, and that clearly this becomes an extremely important topic to take a look at.
Quid pro quo I should be thinking about.
So just be aware that will be
Do
happening.
you own flame-resistant clothing?
This topic is going to be central to wrapping up negotiations with the para-union, and then obviously it also will result probably in some negotiation with the teachers' union to kind of resolve, because we have school care for the rest of this year. One way or another, we have to have a decision made.
And I don't want to bring extraneous things in, but does the shutdown now with the concern of the healthcare premiums being on the table, does that impact us at all, or is it because we are in this type of insurance program where we're not really taking Medicare Advantage plans or anything like that? Do you think that's going to impact us at all at some point, or are we kind of on the outskirts of
I
that.
mean, I don't think it's going to have an impact immediately on this discussion. I mean, I do think the overall health of the healthcare market in the whole country is certainly something to be concerned about, and certainly if 24 million Americans lose their insurance in
Yeah.
the next couple of months, that will have an impact. Exactly what that will look like, it's hard to know.
It could be an influx, right, of people needing to take, potentially needing to take a different health plan, which may be their spouses, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, that's been in the back of my mind.
That's a good point. I'd consider that, so.
Like you said, if spouses all of a sudden decide to switch.
Yeah.
All right,
Plans.
seriously, no more good news. We're at our quota for this
Well, because
meeting.
you've anticipated things so well in the past, I'm just,
Yeah.
trying to keep that record going.
All right, next item on the agenda, the policy committee voted last week to advance 4 policies for a first read and 1 to amend, waiving the first read for reasons that we'll get into shortly. Please.
So the first policy is policy AB. This is a policy required by newly passed legislation requiring all school districts to adopt a policy that has the parental Bill of Rights listed in it. This policy, it's straight from the New Hampshire School Board Association. For those who are curious as to what's in it, nothing in it is new. It's just taking things from all these other laws and putting it together in the form of one document that is the Parent Bill of Rights. And so, yeah, it's a newly required policy.
Which the policy committee recommends that we adopt after a second read, but tonight would be the first read. And for the civics students, by the way, first read, second read, we don't literally read these things. They are long and dry and boring, so we wouldn't do that to ourselves, let alone you.
The documentation is available online, though.
Yes. Please begin ignoring it immediately.
So the next 3 are all kind of interrelated. Policy AC, Policy ACA, and Policy ACAC. Those of you who were on the board last year, remember these policies well, because we similarly reviewed them and completely changed them then. Last year, when the Biden administration was in charge, they issued all new Title IX guidance, and so we went through and revised all our policies to align with the guidance at that time. We had a change in administrations, and one of the first things that happened was everything was reversed. So effectively, what we've done is over a 2-year period, we've gone back to the start. So we changed, and now we change back. These 4 policies, again, required by law, they all align with the new federal guidelines.
Questions?
Have these been, did these come from the School Board Association?
Yes. Yeah, we actually, Erica is our Title IX coordinator and our human resource officer. And we started down the approach of saying, okay, do we take our current policies and try to amend them to keep and it was the most crazy-making process you can imagine, because they literally changed headings and sections and terminology, and it's like, there's no way to do it other than to just say wholesale. So my thought would be, just like I recommended last year, we adopt the recommended policy. Clearly, we're obligated to follow the law regardless of what our policy says. And if we discover things along the way that we need to amend, we can come back and amend it. But I think these are workable from our perspective.
Is there a difference between ACAC and proposed ACAC?
Oh, no. Because ACAC is the most meaty one, I asked Ellen, ACAC is the current version, and proposed is the one that comes from the,
okay.
So the one that's there, that's not the one we're proposing. We're proposing the proposed ACAC, and that is the one that aligns with the new Trump administration guidelines.
Sounds like a rock group.
ACDC, not ACAC.
I would
You
point out
filled it.
that in the policy meeting, one of the things I had asked was, do we feel like any students are going to be left behind with any of these policy revisions. And it's our feeling right now that no, despite some of the verbiage changing, we still have the tools that we need to be able to make sure that everyone gets the support that they need, and that we have the tools to have a supportive environment for our kids. So obviously, subject to review after, we see how things go upon application.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. That's a good point. It was a concern for both of us that Erica and Todd were able to assuage.
And the last one.
JJIC.
The last one is just, again, this is one that you should be familiar with. We had the new unauthorized use of technology that's affectionately known as the bell-to-bell ban on cell phones. One of the things we immediately learned actually before school even opened, that there was an element of this that was not covered, and that was using a personal laptop for educational reasons. And so we immediately were, I say we, Andy Corman was bombarded with people, what about my laptop, what about my MacBook? And we realized very quickly that there was a legitimate reason that someone would need to use a device that wasn't a school-issued one for academic purposes. So we immediately carved out this exception. And then a week or two later, the commissioner's office put out a statement saying that's what you should do anyway. So we felt good that so anyway, this is simply institutionalizing what we call an additional educational exception that allows personal laptop use if you follow our policies. And we have a BYOD policy that regulates that, JICM. So that's what this does.
Any questions about JJIC?
Just for clarification, so are we doing a second read and approval because we already approved it, or are we just approving the revision after our first read?
That one.
Okay. Is there a reason we're not doing a second read other than it needs to be implemented immediately?
We are already implementing it.
All right,
Because of
let's
I made the executive decision that there were a lot of legitimate reasons, and so, and I believe I mentioned that to you on the first meeting in September, just to let you know that we had this issue. So yeah, it's already in place. I mean, we certainly waived the second two-read policy to adopt this, so it would be in place for the opening of school. You certainly could waive it again if you want to. But bottom line is, we're doing this already. So.
Thank you.
All right, so next up on the agenda is a discussion of the New Hampshire School Board Association Delegate Assembly. In the board packet, there was a list of all of the resolutions that have been proposed for the assembly and the School Board Association Board's recommendation with respect to each of them. I will confess I only made it through about 2/3 of it for
That's pretty good.
myself, but did anybody see anything in it that they felt we should strongly advocate for or against?
I saw nothing I think we should advocate for, against rather, and I would be very comfortable advocating for all of the proposed ones. Whether I feel strongly about that, not necessarily, but I think there's a good proposal.
Yeah, likewise. I won't say that I read this 3 or 4 times, so I get in depth, but I did make it through the whole thing, and there was nothing that stood out as anything I would put my foot down against. Like Gary, I wouldn't say I feel strongly about any of it because I didn't spend enough time to feel strongly about it.
And not least of which, my gut feeling is that all of those resolutions are going to fall on deaf ears at Concord. The tenor of a lot of them runs contrary to, how do I say this gently, the majority party in the legislature's closely held views on the direction of public education. So I don't see it going very far. My only reaction to any of it was on the open enrollment, I kind of like Dover's resolution better than the one that the board is recommending, but it's splitting hairs. It's not that I feel the board's is fatally flawed. I just like Dover's a little better because it's a little punchier, but.
advocacy and estimates that appreciated, but in doing that, it's the purpose of this, just to make sure that our voices are heard of people in education, and is there going to be an action taken based on this.
At least it gives them a chance, whoever the school board representatives are during these public hearings. It gives them some,
I feel like it's, if you want to do it. I feel like it's like, I feel like it's like analogous to us writing it to our reps, right? Our reps happen, fortunately, to be in line with what I think most of us
Right.
believe. So we could write to them. Is it going to change anything in Concord? Probably not.
I have to commend Representative Cahill for his actions, because I've listened to him a few times because luckily I have the time to be able to do it, for his advocacy for school building aid. Year after year, he seems to be putting that in, and he's working hard to be able to get something. I don't really quite understand all the nuances, but just trying to get building aid going from one year to the next year seems to be a big stretch for a lot of these representatives. The other one that I listened to the other day, it was a subcommittee hearing, and it was about, I forget what the bill was, but it was about increasing state aid to all school districts, and that one was voted down along party lines, inexpedient to legislate, even though there was a whole lot of dialogue about why that should happen. So it's, we are kind of barking up what kind of a tree you want to put it, but at the same time, we have to keep our voices heard and advocate for the public schools.
Yeah, I mean, some things you say because they need to be said, not because you expect anyone's going to listen.
Right.
And yes, Mike Cahill has my endless admiration for continuing to bash his head against that wall. Someday it's going to break and he'll be victorious and probably mildly concussed.
He's also
the wall, not his head, right?
Yeah.
He's also quite involved in the amount of state aid for charter schools versus public schools, and pulling out the standardized data, the testing data. And it's surprising for the return on the investment how little we're getting back to some of the charter schools. Newmarket, of course, because they did as well. But, so anyway, that's my comments. And when I go to I don't know why they kept saying the date had changed, because it was always October 25th. But
It was October 4th, they sent out a special notice saying they changed it from October 4th to 25th.
And when I printed things out, it was a meeting, October 25th. So I will go and hopefully represent Newmarket. Okay. Yeah, she did, yeah. And I've registered.
Information that you might have already had.
Yeah, and thank you. I'm getting the hang of this little by little.
All right, last discussion item we have is some upcoming school events that Ellen put together for us.
Yeah, well, Ellen, again, if you wanted to, she'll send you invites to all of these, just let her know. We've got the NESPTA Spirit Wear sale going on now through November 5th, so if you're looking for that fancy, Newmarket Elementary School.
October.
Did I say what I say?
You said nothing.
Oh, October 5th, excuse me.
So all those people who are running to their
Thank you.
keyboards.
Those of you who are going to wait until after October 5th, excuse me. We got the NHS induction ceremony on October 9th. We have Newmarket Sings. That's actually an event being promoted by the Arts and Cultural Commission. And it literally is what it says. You come here and you sing. It's going to be a community singing event. So if you like singing, come here. October 22nd, we have middle school athletic fall awards, fall athletic awards, excuse me. On the 29th, we have a parent forum that our counseling department is putting together called Parenting in a Technology-Driven World. Jody Labarsky, a psychologist from Community Health, is coming to run that, so it should be a great thing. The 30th is Trick or Treat in Newmarket, and I know there's some great activities that our students here at Newmarket Junior Senior High do around collecting canned goods and so forth on that night. And then lastly, 11/11 is the high school athletic awards night. I will have to ask Mr. Hayes if that is in fact the correct date, because that's Veterans Day and it's a holiday, so I don't know if they're actually on that day. So we'll find out, but that's what it says, so.
All right, thank you. Moving along, we'd like to take this moment to acknowledge a generous donation from the Newmarket Elementary School PTA of $126 for the purchase of a series of Splingo apps. I am hoping maybe somebody on the board knows what that is, but they'll be used by Lori Carmichael, who is one of our speech and language pathologists at the elementary school. Splingo, S-P-L-I-N-G-O.
I think I recall it's a suite of educational games designed by a speech therapist to help students develop speech and language skills. But that's just off the top of my head.
I was just thinking the same thing. It's so weird.
Anyway, so yes. Thank you, Google. All right, moving along to action items. I would accept a motion to approve the minutes from our September 18th meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Lonnie. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. Any edits, questions?
DOE 25 as a long and complex document. And it was,
Okay,
but very clear.
all right then. Any other edits? All those in favor? Aye. We are unanimous. Who has the manifest? Can I get a motion to approve the manifest?
I move to approve the manifest for October 2nd, 2025 in the amount of $1,151,835.00.
Second.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Lonnie. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are unanimous. I'd accept a motion to accept the first read of policies AC, ACA, and ACAC.
I move that we approve said policies.
Thank you, Jeff.
Now I will second it.
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions, comments? All those,
Don't throw away the other version so we can.
yeah, we will keep the other version.
Next administration will be switching
Yeah.
back.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're unanimous. I'd accept a motion, I don't know why we did this separately, but to approve the first read of policy AB.
For a second.
So moved.
Thank you, Gary.
Second.
Thank you, Lonnie. Comments on AB?
Thank you to the policy committee for going through all of those.
Yes.
They're a dedicated bunch. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're unanimous. I think I need to split this up. First, I'd accept a motion to waive the first and second read on the revision to policy JJIC. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Kathy. All those in favor? Aye. We're unanimous, 5-0. So then I'd accept a motion to approve the revision of policy JJIC.
So moved.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Gary. All those in favor? Aye. We are unanimous. Last action item, I'd accept a motion to approve Form DOE 25, which we will, assuming we accept it, all sign after the end of the meeting.
Make a motion that we approve that.
Thank you, Jeff.
And I'll second it.
Thank you, Kathy. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are unanimous. Does anybody have anything else before we break this evening? We don't have a need a non-public, correct? All right, wonderful. I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Lonnie.
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.